Hello and welcome to AU Wishbone, brought to you by White Rocket Entertainment in association with all of our great supporters via patreon.com. I am your host, Van Allen Plexico, joined as always by my co-host.
I'm John Ringer.
And John, we are here to do the special first ever. This is your brainchild, and we're joined, of course, by co-host Boris. I am Nostra Boris. To do predictions. We are here to do our very first chicken finger basketball preview prediction show. We've been doing the barbecue football SEC preview for many years now, and it's become quite popular. And you had the brilliant suggestion, the brilliant idea to do the same thing for basketball, but with what's the other thing associated with the SEC and with Auburn? Chicken fingers.
And I want to give, there was a listener who suggested this, and I cannot remember who it is. I want to give them credit. We figured that out. But I'm excited, an excuse to eat chicken fingers and talk to Van about Auburn basketball. So let's do it.
Absolutely. And let's be clear, as always, that we are going to be eating on the air. So save your messages and emails where you say, you guys are eating on the air. That's the point. That's what we're here for, is to eat chicken fingers on the air. So all three of us here will be eating. You can see Boris has his prediction magical Nostra Boris cloak on. So we'll be eating chicken fingers live on the air and using the power of the chicken finger to determine how the season's going to go. Is this correct?
That's correct.
That's it. All right. So we have several things we normally do at this point. So first up, well, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and say while we got it here, where did you get your chicken fingers from? We always tell where we got our food.
Raising Cane's.
That's it. Raising Cane's. Wish they were sponsoring us because we're giving them this free publicity. I have the lovely box here. I've already eaten a bunch of it, and I've replaced some of the French fries with some jalapeno popper potato salad from Walmart. And it's good. It's like potato salad, but instead of the mustard dill flavor, it's got that jalapeno cream cheese flavor.
Interesting.
I had to have it. I had to try it, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And I'm going to go ahead and do the ceremonial unwrapping of the Raising Cane's fork. There we go. So everyone can see I have my pristine, clean Raising Cane's fork ready to go. And I have a couple of extra sauces. Ooh. All right. So I got the chicken. I got some fries. I got what's left of my piece of toast. And I've got some potato salad. And I've even got a little bit of slaw left over. Got to have the slaw if you're me. You know, that's one of our bitter divides, John. I got to have the slaw.
I am a no slaw in my chicken finger order person. Extra fries, extra sauce.
Yep. That's the rest of my family too. But in fact, I always check my order at Raising Cane's when I order for like more than just me, because my wife, my daughter don't want slaw. And so invariably, they take my slaw out. And I'm digging through everything. And I said, there's no slaw here. And they're like, you didn't order any slaw? I said, yes, I did. There was one that was supposed to have slaw in it. And they're like, oh, if I wanted to, I could just get free fries every time by doing that, by not ordering the slaw. But I don't. I order the slaw and they never give it to me. And I end up with the third extra fries and the slaw. It's crazy. I don't feel bad. It's their mistake. Anyway. All right. Well, you know what comes first before we get into we got two big basketball games to look back at, and then we've got the season to look ahead to. But before we do any of that, it's the Auburn Fun Meter, John. It's our weekly look at how much fun on a scale of 0 to 10 it is to be an Auburn fan this week. And I got to tell you, it was pretty freaking fun, especially considering the football team stayed as far away from my television and competitive competition as possible. So the football team kind of went over there and did their thing. Yeah. And the basketball team went out and did very, very good things twice, which we're going to break down and celebrate in just a minute. So that being the case, John, where is your Auburn Fun Meter today?
You made the important point first, which is the football team can't drag down the score this week because they didn't do anything.
Yes.
So I'm gonna say I'm an 8 or 9.
Yeah, 9 is good. If we think of 10 as like we won the Iron Bowl or something, then 9 is about as high as I'm really willing to go. Or we didn't win the Final Four, but honestly, we just won a game that we could play. We could have played in the Final Four.
Ding ding.
Got a lot to say about that in just a minute. So, by the way, I see behind you, you have your War Eagle sign, and I have my War Eagle sign because we got those at the when we spoke to the
Birmingham War Eagle Club.
War Eagle Club. Yeah, we got our little sign. So mine is right up there. Yeah, we both got. That's pretty cool. Looks good. Looks good back there. All right. So, on to the basketball. Let's talk about Houston first, I guess. We'll come back and catch Vermont because that was a good win too in a different way. That was just insane. But that win over Houston, I want to go ahead and knock one thing out, which is that historically, John, this is the kind of game that even good Auburn teams lose. I can think of so many times that Auburn has played, not so many, but either in the NCAA tournament or in the preseason or in the middle season, we always lose these games. I think about the Duke game a couple of years ago. We were really competitive, but we never,
We played Gonzaga in the regular season a few years ago.
Yeah, we always find a way to lose them. And this time I was shocked. They did it.
It is the biggest non-conference regular season win in Auburn basketball history.
Yes. Yeah. And it's cool that that's the case. It's also kind of amazing that it took until year 10 or 11 of Bruce's run to do that. But this was it. And we should be excited.
We should be very excited. We always talk about, celebrating the wins more than you let the losses bother you. We should be celebrating this win and savoring it, enjoying the heck out of it.
In the past, in a game like this early in the season, we would lose it and we'd be like, all right, well, it helped us learn more about ourselves and it'll help them come together and they'll see what they need, this, that, and the other. It's never been, and we won. I'm reevaluating the prediction of the season that I made because when I predicted how many wins we'd have this season, a few days ago, there's a Twitter thing that people can predict, and I said 22-9, and that was because I just automatically gave us losses for most of these big early season games. Well, guess what? So, that didn't happen. So if they can beat, and Vermont is a tournament caliber small team. They're a first round matchup kind of guy.
That's exactly right. They're a team that's 3 NCAA tournaments in a row, 6 out of the last 8. Vermont is exactly the kind of team that we will be playing on the first weekend in the NCAA tournament, and we beat them at home by 50.
Just beat their doors off. Yeah. So, all right. Before we get to the game, let's address the 2 Tigers, not the Tiger of unknown origin, which, by the way, when LSU said they were bringing in a Tiger of unknown origin, Boris immediately volunteered to go down there and quote unquote help LSU by being the Tiger of unknown origin. And now his Twitter name is Tiger of unknown origin.
You should contact the governor of Louisiana. Maybe that Tiger didn't work. Maybe he paid Boris to do it.
I like it. But Nostra Boris was not the Tiger of unknown origin. So didn't work out too well. But on the airplane, what do we know now? What's the latest info we know on that?
Something happened on the airplane. Auburn players ranging from, engage in activity that ranging from description of like horseplay shenanigans to, fighting with each other. Plane turned, crew unhappy. Plane turns, clearly they told them to stop a couple times. It didn't happen. Plane turns around and goes back to Auburn. 2 players off the plane, and plane then turns around and continues on to Houston. The at any time there's an incident on an airplane, they have to notify the local police. They did that. Auburn police have issued a statement. The two players were the other true freshmen and Turtle Hudson, the transfer forward, and they, didn't play this weekend, and that's it. On the scale of the, incidents and things that should have gotten a bunch of attention, this got way more attention than it deserved.
Sure.
And I'm sure they will be suitably punished, and that's my whole view of the thing.
And honestly, it couldn't have, if it had to happen, and if two guys had to get left behind, the sense I get, and no slight on them, although they kind of asked for it by this behavior, it seems like these were like the two. If you had to pick two, right? If I held a gun to your head and said, pick two players that we don't take, it would have been these two guys, right? More or less.
Oh yes, very much. And we don't know why or whatever, but I'm also like, in the scale of problems as scandals or whatever in college athletics, like this, in my opinion, kind of escaped containment and got way more attention than it deserved.
Yeah,
like the Today Show was talking about this.
Yeah, that's just nuts. But we had to, and there hasn't been any more word about what'll happen to these guys now, right? I mean, I'm assuming it could be anywhere from stadium steps, like Pat Dye would have done, to all the way up to kicked off the team, but we don't know where in the middle of that it's going to, or either, where that's in that continuum it's going to fall. Okay.
And I mean, there will be university and Bruce Pearl punishment, and then there potentially will be,
beyond that,
legal authorities punishment too, which are two different things.
All right. Moving aside of all that, what an incredible basketball game that happened when they got there. It ended up getting pushed till really late at night. I felt bad for you because it was late enough for me. It was late enough for me, but you out there on the East Coast, you must have been dying.
It was rough. I'm going to be honest. Very rough.
Yeah.
Saturday night. So not good for me, but it was a huge basketball game and we powered through. I did go back and watch the second half again Sunday morning because I was, half conscious at the second half Saturday night. So
I was falling asleep at halftime, but there was no way I was going to fall asleep during that game. It was just too intense. It was like people keep saying it was like a March-April game instead of a November game.
Yes.
It felt like a second or third round. It felt like those games where we are like an 8 seed and we beat the 9 seed Vermont, and then we play the number 1 seed in the round of 32. We've done that several. If you go back and look at Auburn, especially under Sonny Smith, we would always be an 8 or 9 seed, beat the other 8 or 9 seed in the first round. So we wouldn't even get an easy first round match. We wouldn't get 15 or 16. We get 8 or 9. And we beat 8 or 9, which would be like Arizona or somebody. And then in the second round, we'd get the number 1 team, like St. John's, UNLV or something. And so that's what it felt like. And then, and even it felt kind of like the 2019 team when they beat New Mexico State and then turned around and they get Kansas or North Carolina. I always get those two mixed up. Kansas, yeah. So there you go. So that's kind of what it felt like. We have a quad 1 win now. Got to be excited about that.
We had one last non-conference season, so we've already got one with many other opportunities on the schedule, so that's exciting.
Yes. And immediately after the game was over, and we're going to talk about the game, but immediately after the game was over, went to number 1 in the Ken Palm ratings, which I never knew what they really were until now, but now I know kind of what they are. So because we were number 2 going in, and they were number 1. So if you go by those ratings, it was a 1-2 matchup in the second game of the season. That's incredible. And we won. It was a defensive battle because, if there's one thing, if there's one thing that I prepared myself for eating chicken fingers on the air by eating chicken fingers. So I have the hiccups now. If there's one thing that Bruce likes to do, it's build a very strong defensive team, right? That's his primary goal is to build a good defense because defense travels, as he likes to say. And then you work on, getting some scoring. And both of these teams were like almost mirror images in that way. They were just locked down. It was like 0-0 for 3 minutes. It was a long time.
Houston is a great defensive team, one of the
Yeah.
best defensive teams of college basketball over the last 5 years. I think last year only 2 teams scored 80 on them. Most of their opponents they held into the 40s and 50s. And they play, you could tell, like when Auburn got bad shots, it wasn't because we were taking bad shots. It's because Houston plays great defense, individually and team-wise.
Yeah. We were having to find ways to create offense. They just did a really good job of that in the second half. And in fact, that was one of the things that the 2 assistants, I'll go ahead and mention this now. The 2 assistants that Bruce particularly singled out after the game, he said that his son, Stephen Pearl, put together an outstanding and incredible game plan. Quote, he is ready, unquote. I'm assuming that's Bruce trying to get his son a job. And that's fine. And then Mike Burgomaster called every offensive play in the second half. So the sense I got is that Burgomaster is like the offensive coordinator, basically.
Yes.
And he calls plays, and Bruce decides if he wants to do them or not. And Bruce said, I went with everything he suggested in the second half. And clearly it worked. Clearly it worked. I mean, the couple of times that things didn't work were kind of human error, as you might say, like the dunk that bounded off the rim, or there was one alley-oop and it just didn't quite go down.
Yep.
But other than that, everything really seemed to work in the second half, which I thought, listening to Kelvin Sampson talk about it after the game was really interesting, because he was almost in shock of how well our offense was able to do against him. He was like, dang,
Listen, that was the 3rd best shooting performance against Houston in the last 5 years.
Wow.
Okay. In Houston, in the second game of the season, in the second half especially, Auburn cooked at a level that you don't see teams do that on offense against Houston ever.
Absolutely. And it's funny that as great as Janai Broome was in winning this game, helping us win this game and contributing, he single-handedly brought down both our field goal percentage and our free throw percentage because he clunked a few 3-pointers off, and he missed like every free throw he took. I was already concerned about his free throw shooting after the Vermont game, and even after the preseason game where he missed a bunch of free throws. He's not doing well at free. He had gotten better last year. And he's kind of regressed on that. So I have if there's an Achilles, every team has a number of Achilles heels. I'm worried that one of our Achilles heels is going to be foul Broome and put him on the free throw line.
Yeah. If we get into close games, I think it's going to be where we're ahead. I think they're going to take him out.
Yeah, because every other player that got fouled in the second half made their free throws.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very careful to make sure that it was like Denver Jones and Chad Baker-Mazara. That, oh, by the way, that reminds me, my wife wanted me to bring this up because she had a concern about it. She says they need to decide what Chad's name is and stick with it. Because some people say Chad, some people say Chad Baker, and some say Chad Baker-Mazara. I think it was Andy Burcham and the new guy that replaced Sonny as the color analyst kept saying Chad Baker, and she's just like, that's not his name.
Not his name.
Yeah. So figure out, people, what his name is, and we'll go from there. Yeah. All right. So, I mean, where to begin? All right. I got to get this out of the way. Talking about Chad Baker-Mazara, I saw that Stephen had said in a preseason talk, they said that Stephen Pearl described Chad Baker-Mazara as Chad Baker-Mazara giveth and Chad Baker-Mazara taketh away. I called him the 2-edged sword, which is the same exact metaphor. Did you see when he got pushed out of bounds and ran into the Cougar mascot? Houston has an Albie-like cougar. He's pretty cute, And Chad Baker-Mazara kind of got pushed into him. And when Chad turned around to come back on the court, the cougar pushed Chad from behind. Now, I immediately think, is that just the mascot being cutesy? or is he trying to do the Yale thing and get Chad to overreact? Chad turned around and got in the face of the mascot, and I'm watching this, and my brain at that point is blowing up that Chad Baker Mazzara is about to get in a fight with the Cougar, the mascot. Okay, who else but him is going to be in that situation? Number one. But I'm split in half. Half of me thinks it's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. The other half is, oh my gosh, he's going to get ejected for beating up the mascot.
Well, and then we're going to lose because he's got ejected for beating up the mascot.
Yes. I wanted to see him tear the head off the Cougar.
When you say mascot fight, it immediately makes me think of the time at Beard Eves Coliseum that one of our Big Al tore the poster of one of our friends and started a fight in that arena.
Oh, good gosh. Well, Big Al's a giant stinking rat that needs to be exterminated, but that's a whole other thing. But I just, again, if there's anybody that would start a fight, although honestly he didn't start it, but there's anybody that would finish a fight with a mascot, it's Chad Baker Mazzara. And I was half terrified, but half I really wanted to see it. I wanted to see him punch the mascot and knock his freaking head off. That would have been so funny. Anyway, double figures outscoring the best defensive team in the country in the second half. I mean, what do you make of that? Because we're a good defensive team, but how did we do it?
I mean, number one, we had a great offensive plan. And number two, we executed. And one of the things you talked about, the two guys getting, left at home, we shortened the rotation. We played 5 core players almost the whole second half.
Yes.
And it was, Pettiford, Denver Jones, Chad Baker Mazzara, Broom, and Chaney Johnson. Those 5 guys played almost the whole second half. And
Chad had 3 fouls in the first half too. So he was having to be very careful.
That's right. But they played great as a unit, and their consistency and their execution allowed Auburn to deal with Houston's great defense and pull away.
Yeah, we were held to 28 the first half, which shows you how good Houston's defense is. But we scored 46 points in the second half. There's this new statistic. I'd never heard this statistic used very much before, but everybody's throwing it around now. How many points per possession?
Mm-hmm.
In the second half, we scored 1.533 points per possession. That's pretty good in general, especially against the greatest defensive team in college basketball.
That's good against anybody. And against Houston, That's amazing. So that was and on the scale of best halves Auburn basketball has ever played, that is on the list.
Yeah, especially given the level of competition. Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, 57% from the field shooting and 40% from 3-point range. And most of that was Pettiford. So let's talk about him for a second. Is this going to be one of the – because, somebody made this point during the show that Aiden Holloway had 2 or 3 pretty good games and then was never seen again to start the season last year. He kind of fell off a cliff after game 3. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, everybody's different. So that's not even on the radar, right, for this. Surely not.
I'm going the other direction.
Okay.
Pettiford is going to be an all-timer. You can write this down right now.
Take it to the bank.
We'll save a little bit of this for the predictions in a few minutes, but there was a guy on Twitter, Lonely Tailgater, who made a comparison. When he said it, I was like, I don't know about that. He compared Pettiford to Kenny Anderson as a freshman at Georgia Tech.
Oh,
who came in. They had some other excellent players, Brian Oliver and Dennis Scott, but he was a freshman from the New York area. Came in tough, but a scorer, distributor, a guy that had no fear, was never worried on the basketball court. Remember, Pettiford had 0 against Vermont. He missed all the shots he took in that game, and then he went into Houston and did this. So if you're a freshman who's intimidated or afraid or doesn't feel doesn't have the confidence to go out there and do it, you don't get to be this position. I think Pettiford is going to end up being a starter and is going to be a star for us. I think he is a monster, and he has that thing that you want which is he will go to the basket. He's
Yes.
not afraid of anyone.
Yes. You've got to have that. And especially in March, you have to have that. Because that's what's happened to us the last few years. We've had great front courts, and you can win in December and you can win in January and February with a great front court. But in March, they're going to figure out how to stop that.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to create off the dribble from the guard position, or you are not going to the Final Four.
Yeah.
You're just not. You're not.
And we have guys that could do those two things where they can create their own shot. They don't have to have a bunch of screens as fancy passes to get a good shot off. They can create their own shot and get it up and get it in. And we have a bunch of mid-sized guys, super athletic guys who can go to the basket and score in contact.
And get rebounds. And block shots. That's, I mean, their length on the outside. I love Bruce's system, which is Bruce puts 5 guys out there, and you kind of know who the point guard is because he's bringing the ball up. And you figure, well, that must be the center because he's a little taller than everybody else, kind of sit in the middle. The other 3 guys, who knows what their positions are, right? I mean, if you ask me right now, what does Chad Baker-Mazara play? He's one of those 3 guys. What does Denver Jones play? One of those 3 guys. They're all, you know what I mean? What does Bruce Johnson play? One of those 3 guys.
In Bruce's system in particular, the point you're making is valid because the shooting guard and the small forward are basically just wing guys. One stands on one side of the 3-point line, one stands on the other side of the 3-point line.
Yeah, there's virtually no difference between our shooting guard and our forwards, at least our small forwards. So, I mean, the thing that distinguished Bryce Brown was he was the guy shooting all the 3-pointers. So you knew, okay, he's the shooting guard. But beyond that, they're very mix and match, and it seems to work pretty well. I don't have any issue with it. So, what do you think about the Twin Towers starters? I was going to put it to you this way first. Let me just say this: I like the idea that if nothing else, you're at least letting Dylan Cardwell be a starter in his last year.
Yes,
you're not going to start him over Broom, but at least he's able to start. And that's, even if you pull him out after a minute and go back to our standard lineup, at least he's getting to start. So good on Dylan.
I think it's fine. I think it creates a good defensive thing at the beginning of the game where, again, the other team is not going to drive to the basket with those 2 guys in the game.
No.
I think their spacing is still a little weird on offense when the 2 of them are in the game.
Yes.
But it creates problems for the other team.
Yeah.
But I think clearly it is it's a thing we open the game with, but we don't close the game with it.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't know that we ran it much at all in the second half. But again, I think if nothing else, it lets the 2 of them both start, and that's pretty cool.
In the Vermont game, Vermont went 6 of 24 on shots at the rim.
Good God.
Where they're literally on layups, they went 6 for 24. So this says something about Broom and Cardwell and their defense around the basket.
Oh, man. What about Denver Jones and Chaney Johnson? I mean, we talk about Chad Baker-Mazara is so flashy. He gets a lot of attention. I feel like Jones and Johnson, as I call them, Dr. Colorado Jones and Lon Chaney Johnson, the Wolfman, the 2 of them, they go about taking care of business. They're not flashy. They're not fiery, but they are just rock solid defenders. They can score. They make their free throws. They're everything you could want in those 3 guys in the middle.
You remember a few years ago, we had this problem where other teams would have really good kind of big scoring wings or shooting guards, and we couldn't stop them. They'd always have the season high against us and stuff.
Yes.
Denver Jones has ended that. The guy for Houston, LJ Cryer, was really good in the first half, and in the second half, Jones covered him the whole time, absolutely shut him down where he didn't make the shots he was making the first half. And Jones has done that. He guarded the best offensive player in Vermont and the best offensive player in Houston. He has not committed a foul in the first 2 games.
Good gosh, that's incredible.
great defense without fouling, as Sonny Smith always says.
Defense without fouling.
That's it. And then Chaney Johnson has done a great job of kind of bulking himself up. You could see he is noticeably bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
And he's doing a great job rebounding and playing defense and being kind of that dirty work power forward guy that you want. We don't need him to be a scorer, but he can be a guy that puts the ball back in the basket or makes stuff happen. But great effort and intensity and athleticism. And he's just running around causing havoc. And against a team like Houston, that's a great rebounding team and gets a lot of offensive rebounds, you need guys like Chaney Johnson, who when the ball goes up, they're ready to just go to war with people to go get it.
I got an announcement to make about Chaney Johnson. I've always gone all the way back to Lon Chaney, call him the Wolfman, Lon Chaney Johnson. I think it's time to upgrade the Chaney. I'm going to now make him Dick Chaney Johnson. He just shoots people in the face with a shotgun. He just comes up and shoots you in the face with a shotgun, baby. There you go.
People haven't seen that movie, should watch it. So
I haven't seen the movie. I just watched.
Oh, you should watch that Chaney movie. This is you, Van Plexico will enjoy that.
Oh my goodness! All right. Yeah, LJ Cryer was held to 6 points on 3-11 shooting. That's what you were just talking about. Denver Jones and Chaney Johnson. Bruce said Denver Jones is one of the best defensive guards in the country, and nobody talks about it, but I'm going to. He's big, he's strong, physical, fast, powerful, and he wants to win. And Bruce made a really interesting point, too, talking about how our guys aren't just selfish players. They want to win for Auburn. And I like that. And I feel like this year's team, we've been pointing toward it for a long time. This year's team, they're all seniors except for a couple of freshmen. We're going to be starting over from scratch next year. So we need to get it done this year.
That's right. And again, Denver Jones led his conference in scoring at a smaller school and then transferred to Auburn and is playing a supporting role where he doesn't shoot as much, but he's playing great defense and he's making it happen.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Let's talk about the Vermont game quickly. 94-43. It's like this team finds one player that just goes off every game. It was Miles Kelly, the Georgia Tech transfer, I believe, right? In the Vermont game. And then he didn't do much of anything against Houston, but then it was Tahad Pettiford that went off. I'll take one player going off if that's how it's going to work, whatever works. What do you think about Kelly, and what do you think about the Vermont game, where our second team outscored the entire Vermont team, which is unbelievable? Our
second team outscored their entire team, and we could have gone over at halftime and still won.
I actually said on Twitter, Auburn could leave the court and let Vermont play with themselves, which is a weird thing to say, and they wouldn't be able to come back before time ran out.
That's right.
Just 5 of them on the court shooting shots like in warm-up, and they couldn't come back. That's how bad it was.
I mean, really one of the most efficient and dominating performances Auburn's ever had against anybody. And again, Vermont is not the Little Sisters of the Poor. They're not Marathon Oil or whatever. They're a first-round NCAA tournament team, and we annihilated them.
Just absolutely.
And again, Kelly missed his first couple of shots and then came back in the second half and made 5 threes in a row, like in 4 minutes. So
yeah, unbelievable.
Kelly was the leading scorer and the guy at Georgia Tech last year who had to make all the shots for them. They beat Duke, they beat North Carolina, but it was all him. So people look at his shooting percentage and go, "Oh, that guy's not that good." But there were half the games last year, he's taking shots like clock running down, nobody else is open, nobody else can get a shot off. He's got 2 guys on him in the corner, and he's shooting an off-balance 3-pointer, and that's how his percentage ended up like this. This guy is a great scorer and a great 3-point shooter, and on our team where everybody's focused on these other guys, he's going to get wide open looks, and there's going to be some games this year where he lights teams up.
Yeah, I really could see that going off mantle switching around from like a video game where you're hitting the button and changing the players. It could be a different one every game. It could be a different one every week, every half. We just don't know. And I'm optimistic, right? This could all go down the toilet in the next game. Well, no, we're playing Kent State in the next game, so it's not going anywhere anytime soon. All right. Anything else about the Vermont game that you want to talk about? I didn't open the box score, so I don't know if there's anything else of note.
Domination. That's all I got.
It really was. Yeah. All right. So next up is going to be Kent State, I believe, on Wednesday. And I was so mad to find out Auburn finally plays Missouri on a Saturday, and it's in Auburn. Every time they come up here, it's on like a Tuesday night, and I'm just like,
why are they doing that?
It'd be 1 o'clock in the morning before I even got close to getting back home, and have worked the next 3 days in a row. So I never get to go to that. But anyway, maybe next year.
No, it's Kent State at home on the Wednesday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on SEC Network, and then a week from today, North Alabama at home at 9 p.m. Eastern. So while we're recording next Monday night, we'll be watching the North Alabama game. We could do our live commentary.
Oh, great. I got to charge up the iPad and get that ready. That's cool. That's like when we always watch the national championship game while we're doing our show. It's kind of become our tradition here. So, all right, let's get into, let me go ahead and, we're on YouTube. So we're on YouTube, so I'm limited in what music I can play. But I do want to do the YouTube version for this, so we'll just leave it alone. But all week long, there's this Judas Priest song called Nostradamus. Well, the album's called Nostradamus. It's about him. And all week long, Boris the Tiger has been going around in his little predictions wizard gown robe going, I am Nostraboris. Because Boris is ready to make predictions about basketball and show us how it's done. So, tell the folks what we're doing now.
All right. Each year, as Van mentioned earlier, we do the barbecue show, and we eat barbecue, and like the augurs or soothsayers of old, the barbecue, it allows our vision to unlock and see the future.
Yes.
And then we can predict the football records of SEC teams.
And so we are nigh infallible with the barbecue.
Pretty much. Van's Oklahoma prediction looking pretty good right now. So
it is.
So we had a suggestion this year, which is really fun, that we talk enough about chicken fingers that we would do a replacement chicken finger episode for basketball. So the way this works is we have a couple of predictions. During those predictions, I'll say with the question or whatever, and then Van and I will eat some chicken finger, and then we will opine, and the chicken fingers will unlock our third eyes, and we will say what exactly we think is going to happen. And so we have a few of these set up that we'll walk through, and then we'll go from there.
Wonderful description. Very, very good. All right. So you run the point on this. I'll eat chicken and tell you what I think.
All right, here we go. Statement. No, I'm gonna read a statement, and then Van and I are gonna eat chicken and discuss the verdict. Okay.
I'm cracking open the styrofoam containers now. Oh, John, hear it.
There we go.
Oh, there it is.
All right. Chicken finger statement number 1. Auburn will play 3 games in Maui the week of Thanksgiving. First against Iowa State, and then against 2 other good teams. Auburn's record in Maui will be what?
Oh, I'm Nostraboris. Oh, man. It's a tasty record. I can tell you that. That record in Maui is so good. I'm going to have a little
potato
coleslaw.
Salad. All right.
A little coleslaw. And then a little jalapeno popper potato salad. Oh, man.
All right. 3 games. Our record will be.
This is not what I was going to say. This is not what I was going to say, John. The chicken is telling me. The chicken is like 3-0. I am but a mouthpiece for the chicken.
You're but a
beak,
vessel,
if you like. I am but a beak if you like.
All right, you heard it here.
I was not going to say that.
I was thinking 2-1, but I'm with Van. 3-0 in Maui. Write it down. All right.
Take it to the chicken finger bank.
All right. In early December, Auburn will travel to Cameron Indoor Stadium to play the Duke Blue Devils, and the result of that game will be what? And now we eat the chicken again to reveal.
I am not a Boris. Boris is eating some chicken.
Duke has Cooper Flagg, who'll be the first pick in the draft next year, big 7-foot guy. And the chicken is telling me Auburn win in Cameron.
Agreed.
Tigers
win. Tigers win. Oh, hold on.
This is not.
There it is.
All right.
This is not where I thought this was going to go, but I mean, the chicken is speaking, and who are we to deny it?
All right. Question number 3. When Auburn plays Purdue in Birmingham, the result will be.
Ooh. The chicken wants to know if they still have that really big guy.
They do not. Zach Edey's in the NBA.
The chicken says, answer uncertain, ask again later. How do I interpret that, John?
Could be an L. Could be an L, man.
Could be.
They're missing that guy. They're still going to be good. A team that's often been a 1 or 2 seed last 7 or 8 years. So
again, I want to say we were going to win this one, but the chicken's kind of not certain. So I'm going to lean toward the loss. We're going to get a loss in there somewhere, right?
That's right. That's right.
And Birmingham is Birmingham. It ain't Neville.
All right. We have not shot well in Birmingham sometimes, I feel like. I see Van going, is that potato salad or
that's the jalapeno popper potato salad. I'm just doing a constant stream here, and I'm going to the chicken when there's a question.
All right. I wanted to just, before we get into some other questions, I wanted to talk a little bit about this team. I think in the discussion about the Houston game, Van highlighted the great coaching. I think we have not just Pearl, but he has an excellent staff that balances each other well. The team is well prepared when we play their teams. I think we have both depth and experience and talent. As Van mentioned, we can kind of rotate who's the on fire star during the game. It doesn't matter between games, but we have a depth where if somebody gets in foul trouble, as Baker Mazar did the other night, we can rotate guys in and cover for them, and we're fine, as Kelly did. The outside shooting, I think, is better and more consistent, and the defense is going to play hard. So I think, it's the defense, as you say, keeps us in every game. It's the floor, and then the offense really matters. So, I think the offense is better. It's more consistent. We have, as we said, more guys who can create their own shot, which you have to be able to do late in the season, and guys that can go to the rim and make it happen.
Well, let's be honest. Our guards the last few years, we've loved them. They've been personalities. They've been cool. We love them, but they were not going to lead us to victory in March. That was not their skill set.
Yep.
Right. And I feel like the guys we have now, it's a little more likely, although we're just now finding that out.
Yeah.
We'll see.
That's fair. We mentioned some of these guys earlier, but I just want to talk about kind of the X factors of guys of, Pettiford, Miles Kelly, Baker Mazzara, Chaney Johnson, Denver Jones. All of those guys could rotate around, and one of them could be hot and make 20 points on a bunch of 3-pointers in a game or driving to the basket stuff. And if one of them's not having a good game, the other ones pick it up and make it happen. But I think they are guys that their ceiling is high, and as long as, they're playing and staying healthy, we have the ceiling to be, go as far as we want to go with this team. I think, Broom is steady. He and Cardwell give great defense and inside. Broom's very steady on offense, and he draws a lot of attention, which allows these guys to be open and do their thing.
That's the great thing is that, you spend years building up to a team like this where you figure out, okay, we need this, and then you go get it the next year, but then you're like, oh, well, now we need this. It's hard these days to keep a team together over enough time that you can fill all the holes in without having new holes created. And they've managed to kind of retain the best pieces of the last 2 years and fill in holes. And so, again, we're going to lose them all this year after this year just about. But in fact, maybe even our freshman we might lose if he's super good. We may have 1-2 players coming back next year of the main 10 or 11. But this is the year they've kind of figured out all the holes, plugged all the holes, found the weaknesses, addressed the weaknesses. And talking about losing players, what do you think the chances are that one or more of our assistants after this season and this would be the year, right? Because they're going to have if everything goes according to plan, and we don't know, but again, if everything goes according to plan, the team and the coaches should have a really nice resume when this year is over. You strike when the iron is hot, and you won't have much to come back to if you come back next year. So, if those assistant coaches were going to leave, this is the year you'd think they would leave.
That's right. And it depends. You can only leave if you get the right offer.
Yeah.
But I clearly think there's some of them that are potential head coaches, and I think teams are going to call. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we could be doing a rebuilding, not just of the players next season, but even of the staff.
That's right.
But you know what? If this year goes the way we think it might and hope it might, that's fine. I couldn't care less. It could be kind of like a 2010 to 2012 situation. But I think you and I and every other Auburn fan would say we will take 2012 if it meant we got 2010.
And then.
And 13 on either side of it. So,
all right. Next chicken prediction. Are you ready?
Ta-da.
In the regular season SEC basketball standings, Auburn will finish in what place?
I'm not the bar. Everything in the palatial studios will be greasy after this show. Some slaw, some potato salad, some toast. Got the toast. Are you a big toast guy at chicken finger places? There it is.
I am.
All right. I like it. There it is.
I think Cane's toast is pretty darn good.
It is. I was very disappointed in the Guthrie's toast we had on our trip last month. It was too dry, too hard, and had too much garlic salt on it. It was almost inedible. This is good. This is nice and soft. Mira, my favorite Mira story of Raising Cane's is when she was really little, she wanted to go get an extra piece of toast. Or she said, I want to go get some more toast. We thought, okay, she wants a piece of toast. So I gave her a $20 bill. She came back with a tray covered in toast. And I said, what happened, Mira? And she says, I gave him the $20 bill and said, how much toast can I get for this? Just covered her tray in toast. Oh, that was good. All right. So where will we finish? You mean like record-wise?
In standings, what place will Auburn finish in the SEC regular season? And I'm going to say second.
Yeah, I think second is a safe. The chicken is saying second, but I agree with the chicken and with Nostroboris, who's also saying second. I agree in the sense that you have letdowns and teams play different schedules. We know Alabama's good. I assume Tennessee's probably going to be good. Yeah, they're always good lately. somebody gets on a run. And I mean, it's kind of like, hopefully somebody else will have our 2022 season of peaking in January. But when a team peaks in January, that means they're beating you in January when they might not beat you in March.
That's right.
So you end up with a loss to a team that you might get revenge on in the tournament. Kind of like Florida, right? Last year, we lost to Florida in Gainesville, as we always do. It's the law. And then we beat them in the SEC tournament. So
that's fair. I mean, again, and we're, as you said, Alabama, Tennessee are, legit top 10 teams and are going to be really tough in the regular season. So I think that's the prediction for second is very reasonable.
I think, was it Bruce said something like, we could end up being a top 10 team in the country and be like fourth in the SEC, something like that. Something,
that's right.
Something that you're like, oh man, it's tough.
All right. Speaking of which, let's do some predictions for other teams.
All right.
We're going to the chicken. First is the hated Alabama Crimson Tide.
Boo. Yes, boo.
Feel like the chicken a little too much ingredients there.
There was some Sears in that chicken. That chicken came from Sears. I was kind of hoping that it wouldn't. I was hoping that part of the chicken would be in the NBA now.
Yep.
But alas, no.
But it's part of a problem for them. They over recruited, and they've already told like two guys who thought they were going to play, they're being redshirted.
Oh, what about Aiden Holloway?
No, I mean, he's on the team, but how much playing time is he going to get? We will see.
Well, I hope that he cashes the checks that my mouth and my Twitter fingers have been writing, which is that he's okay in November, but come January, disappears.
I think it's a system that fits him well, where you take a bunch of deep shots and don't play a bunch of defense. And but I am not going to take cheap shots at him. I'm just not going to say his name for the rest of the season.
There you go. All right. So Alabama, I mean, what do you think about the order you have those in? Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas. Is that the order you think they're going to?
Yes. We have Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas. I think Auburn, Alabama, and Tennessee are all legitimate top 10 teams. And I would be shocked at all if Alabama or Tennessee won the regular season SEC title. Some of it's going to depend on just like who got lucky or unlucky in the scheduling department with the road games and that kind of thing. So,
and then how good is Kentucky this year? I haven't really seen much about them.
Right.
Oh, well, they got their new coach. They got
their new coach, Mark Pope, and a different philosophy, right?
Yeah.
We had Calipari before, and he was all about bringing in the stud freshmen who are going to be future NBA players, but playing a very inexperienced team that then grew and developed and, would be dangerous later in the season. But at times, because there was a bunch of freshmen that just met each other or were just in high school, they had some real challenges over the last few years. And so Pope is going the opposite way. He brought in a bunch of transfers, older players who are excellent defensive players, who are not all future NBA stars, but they're going to be a very different looking Kentucky team.
That's interesting.
It is. It's going to be interesting to see how they do and how that. But I think Kentucky fans are tired of, high profile recruits who don't want to play defense and don't play well together. Mm-hmm. And I think even at times, Calipari could get it to blend to the point where they were really dangerous, but other times it kind of blew up in their face. And this is going to be a really different way of operating. Pope did a good job at BYU. And then Calipari's at Arkansas now, and he's taken that philosophy with him to Arkansas. They got a bunch of transfers from Kentucky and from other schools, and it's a couple of good freshmen. So they're going to be really dangerous. I mean, I think Arkansas has been good, and they replace that coach that you had the sound clip for with Calipari. So we'll see how it goes.
They did replace him, and
yeah, that's a pretty bold statement. You know what I mean? It's factual.
Yeah, it is.
Which
So,
he gave us that gift before he left. So.
Before he left, I was going to say Kentucky. The thing is, Bruce kind of had their number, right? He knew Calipari. He had Calipari's number. We didn't always beat them, and sometimes they beat us pretty good. But when we would play Cal's Kentucky, you always felt like we had a chance because Bruce had cracked their code somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like it's a completely different code. So we're gonna have to see.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Kentucky game because I have no idea what's going to happen.
Where's it gonna be played? Here in Auburn or in Lexington?
2 seconds. I do not remember.
It seems like we play them every year. When you don't
At
play
Kentucky, March 1st.
Ooh, late in the year then. Late in the season.
Like Auburn's last 3 regular season games at Kentucky on a Saturday, home or at A&M on a Wednesday, Tuesday.
That's a tough ask.
And then the Saturday last game of the season, home game against Alabama.
Oh, ooh! That's conceivably 0-3. It's also conceivably 3-0, but
it's conceivably like that Alabama game is for the SEC regular season title.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's looking into what kind of legs are you on going into the SEC tournament? Are you coming off of this huge win streak, or are you coming in having dropped 3 in a row or something, or is it a mixed bag? So you don't like. In other words, if we have a huge emotional come from behind last second win over Alabama, and then turn around and have to play, say, Texas A&M in the first round of the SEC tournament or the first game that we have to play, that never seems to go well.
That's right. So that's a good point to make in terms of those games, and then the SEC tournament right on the heels of that is a lot.
Bear in mind the strangest statistic in Auburn basketball, which is that in Bruce's very first season over 10 years ago, we won like 2 or 3 tournament games, right? We've won the tournament completely twice. Other than those 3 seasons, we've never won a single SEC tournament basketball game under Bruce. That is so crazy. That's bizarre. Now, I think that Samir Dowdy's team would have, but we'll never know.
Yes, they were peaking at the right time.
They absolutely were peaking really well in 2020, and we'll never know, which is one of the many, many, many things that we hate about that whole year. All right. All right. So anything else about those 4 teams before we look at the tourney?
Nope. Last chicken finger prediction.
Here it comes.
Auburn, how far does it go in the NCAA tournament?
Well, I didn't immediately spit the chicken out, which is a good sign. Considering how our NCAA tournaments have gone sometimes. It's coming to me. It's like the X-Files, John.
What does that mean?
Ring.
Final 4. Write it down. We're going. This team can do it.
It's the X-Files. I want to believe. Give me reason to believe.
This team's going to soar. Bruce is going to pilot us through the air to the Final 4. We're all going to be passengers on board that flight through the skies, and
we're all going to be fighting on the way. They're going to turn the plane around multiple times, but when we finally fly in, when the Flying Tigers land, Boris, what do you think? National champion.
Boris calls it. We've seen this though in recent. This isn't just an Auburn bias thing. number one, this team was legitimately that good. And number two, we've seen this with teams in recent years, teams that lost in big upsets in the NCAA tournament, turned around and built on those and made big runs. UVA lost to the first round and then won the national title the next year. We've seen other teams go to the Final Four the year after. I think this Auburn team can use the talent, depth, and experience and coaching they have, and the constant reminder of the Yale game and what it means and how we have to be prepared to go into the tournament with the right mindset and do damage.
What seed were we last year in the tournament? Not number one, surely.
No, we were like a 4.
Yeah. So they were, and they were like a 13, I think.
Yeah.
4 13s happen. You get 4 13 upsets a fair amount.
Another reason to have a great regular season with a bunch of quad 1 wins in the non-conference. So we're a higher seed.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, there it is. According to John, we are a Final Four team. According to Boris, we are the national champions. And all I can say is, there you go.
Amen.
All right. That was nice. I'm going to save the last of this chicken and potato salad for a little bit later, although I do have a nice French fry here.
And we're going to move into the most awkward transition ever back to Auburn football.
Okay. I got one question for you, though.
All right.
Are you a big chicken finger sauce on the French fry guy?
Oh, absolutely. That's what part of what the sauce is for. The fries are solid. The sauce takes it to another level. I dip every single fry in the sauce, yes.
I kind of alternate ketchup sauce. And then what do you think about Raising Cane's fries compared to like Guthrie's?
Fine. I don't, they're fine.
I kind of like Guthrie's fries better, but
agree.
But these are good. All right. Let's get to the football here. We are playing, we were off Saturday, but we get a hopefully beatable opponent in Jordan-Hare. It's not exactly the
11 a.m. Jefferson Pilot time slot of death.
It's not exactly that, but it's not exactly not that. It's the 11:45 a.m. Central time slot of near death experiences. So
what do you need to know about Louisiana-Monroe, the Warhawks? I am, as we mentioned on last week's show, bitterly. It sounds tougher. I'm bitterly disappointed that Terry Bowden is no longer the coach. I was really looking forward to a terrible ULM team coached by Terry Bowden coming into Jordan-Hare. Instead, they hired this guy that was the assistant at UAB, the interim coach, and that UAB should have hired him and didn't. And he's a good coach. They're 5-4, but they've lost 3 games in a row. At one point they were 5-1, and I was legitimately starting to get a little nervous.
Yeah, me too. Exactly.
But they've lost 3 games in a row. They played one SEC team, and Texas beat them 51-3. And we're not Texas, but in the advanced stat rankings, this team is very comparable to the New Mexico team that we played a few weeks ago with Hank Brown. And
that we
took care of business
pretty soundly, it seems.
Yeah, we beat them pretty solidly with Hank Brown at the helm. So I feel like that's kind of the recipe for Saturday, as long as Auburn does not go in and we cannot sleepwalk, go through the motions. We're not good enough to do that yet against anybody. And so we need to jump on them with both feet and take care of business.
We don't have a reason to think we're going to – we have reason to be concerned because this team finds ways to do strange things. But we, knock on wood, we've kind of eliminated most of the turnovers the last few weeks.
Yes, and which, again, would be I think we may have a number of players we hold out to get healthy So that could be a thing. After last few weeks, I've got a lot of guys banged up. But you're right. If we come out with a pulse, we'll take care of business and beat this team. If we can't sleepwalk and give them penalties and turnovers and stupid things and let them hang around and get some confidence early in the game, we need to just knock them out. And my deep advice for Hugh Freeze is do not lose this game. I mean,
That's profound.
Well, but I mean, here's the deal, okay? We've said on this podcast, he's not in any danger. They're not going to fire him, and they're not. Even if we lose this game, they're not. But here's the thread, okay? We lose this game. National, regional, local media is saying Hugh Freeze is in trouble. He's on the hot seat. Recruits hear that. Recruits go somewhere else. Recruiting class goes down.
Yeah.
Season next year doesn't go as well as we need it to. So just take care of business.
Yeah, we don't even just need to win. We just need to look competent. I mean, we don't just need to win. We need to look competent. I don't want to go out there and, we win, but it's fumble all over the place and throwing interceptions, and somehow we win.
And we're coming back and kicking a field goal against this team or something stupid.
Yes. No. We need to win, and we need to look like we know what we're doing while we are doing it. Boris has a request from the soundboard. He said that we left something out. Go ahead and hit it with your paw there, Boris. He said that we left this part out, and now I can't find it for him. Oh, here it goes. He said we should play this.
In March Madness, let's shock the world.
Good call. Good call, B. All right. We have the college football pick'em going on. What's the latest on that? I'm excited to hear.
Wiping the grease off my fingers before I open it up.
I know it. Everything down here is going to be covered in grease by the time this show is over.
All right. Again, we have 55 people in the college football pick'em having a good time each week. At a lone and first place, UMass Hate Week Forever. Right behind them, two teams tied for second. Someone knows, Daniel knows, and Frosty. And I have moved up. I remember I was at the bottom early on. I moved up
You've
to
been
19th.
slowly working your way up. Yeah.
Moved up to 19th and continue to pick Auburn every week. So that's where we are. I'm excited about it. We're coming down the stretch. There's been some tough games the last few weeks to pick, and we're heading down. There's going to be some tough ones at the end here you got to pick, and that'll decide who wins it. But it's been fun.
That's been great. There was no Formula One race this past weekend. They're going to be in Vegas, I believe, this coming weekend. So that should be fun. Have they done it before? I've heard so much about it forever that I feel like this is like the 15th time, but this is the first one, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So that should be interesting. And then let's see. Oh, we got to thank the patrons. So I always point this part out. Every other podcast in the world these days has ads, and they just interrupt right in the middle of your show. You're trying to listen to something, and they'll be, "Have you heard of it?" No, we don't do that. We have no ads other than our own, which is what this is, and that's because of our great patrons. And to reward them, they get to do things like the college football pick'em. We'll have the March Madness thing coming up. We have bowl pick'em contest. We have the Formula One. We do all kind of stuff all year long to engage with the patrons and give you guys some return on your investment, as well as our weekly show continuing. But also every stinking episode, pretty much, few exceptions, I thank the patrons, and including whatever message that they want to include on their name. So here currently are the fine AU Wishbone family members who are keeping our program going. They include, and I have to get the soundboard ready because a lot of them have sound effects. They include Samuel Salvatore, who always reminds us that
Tonight's forecast, a freeze is coming.
And more true than ever, that is a freeze that has pearl white snow. Carl Von Drunker, Chris and Clinton Stewart, Dr. Crackham, Logan Chilton demands Rule Britannia comes back because
Scott Wilson.
yeah, unfortunately. Mark Brown, Wilson Beard, and Pridgeon as the season begins to wind down. When Carroll has a question.
Are we having fun yet?
Yeah. Well, in basketball, we are, Win. So there you go. Bill Weathers, Bradley Blackman, David WDE Sammons Esquire, the workers' comp defense attorney for the notorious
Jones Barbecue and Foot Massage.
Earl Ricks, Eric Morgan, Gary Grant, a.k.a. AU Fan at KSC, Harry Zager, if Carroll Shelby, I always enjoy these. If Carroll Shelby could have seen Houston fans on Saturday, he would have said,
I don't speak Italian, but he ain't happy.
I just enjoy those every time. And that's true. Matt Flower. Oh, the Houston fans were extra salty on Twitter. They are not used to losing. They're certainly not used to losing this early. And they were melting down, and it was hilarious. This one guy says, don't shoot the messenger, after I basically said how dumb his anti-Auburn comments. So the guy said, Houston wasn't trying to win. They were just playing different players to see what works and to prepare for the season. And by the way, we didn't play it in our own arena. We had to play in the arena down the street. And I'm like, so you're mad that we played Houston in Houston and not in Houston, and you didn't try, and you're mad at us that you didn't try. And he's like, well, don't hate the messenger. I said, I don't hate the messenger. I'm just laughing at your stupid comment. So
I don't think the Houston coach would agree with him about that.
No.
Playing for the game.
No, not at all. Matt Flowers, Michael Kirshner says, Phil Amthor says, this is what Houston was saying.
No, I'm devastated. I'm devastated. They're celebrating right in front of me.
And we were.
This is the worst.
It might have been.
This is the worst.
Losing in November.
No.
Yes, take it, Houston. I'm sorry. Richard Stevens, Steve Trawick, Susan Trawick, Trombone Tiger, Willie Carden, William Morgan, a few more patrons left. Auburn Football's Elvis, Ben Bloodworth, Bobby Polite, Brandon Smith, hold on. Got to find the right button, I bet. Bread puns happen when you least expect them. Wow. John's flabbergasted. Okay. Yeah. Chad McDowell, Chris Thrash, Dan Thompson, Daniel Odom. Hello, misery, my old friend.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold statement. You know what I mean? It's factual.
H-Town, Danny, In-Home, Hugh, Jacob and Robin Fleming, Catherine England, Lane Middleton. Last night, I dreamed I was a muffler. I woke up exhausted. Don't spit out your chicken fingers, John. John didn't actually have lunch. Oh, we've killed him. He's going to choke now. He's choking on the chicken fingers. John, you said you didn't have lunch. You saved the chicken fingers to actually have lunch on the air, correct?
That was a bad plan. Bad plan on my part. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. I ate 4 of my 6 for lunch with the family, and then I brought the other 2 down here. And I'm really full of chicken fingers now, to be honest with you guys. I managed to make 1 chicken finger last that whole segment. So that's, thank goodness, or I would be dying right now. The muffler comment was from Bob WD Sammons Esquire, aka 76 Tiger, who is the noted sleazy shyster for
Jones Barbecue and Foot Massage.
Making offense look impossible since 2020. That's the football team for sure. Mickey B, no on fights like Gaston. I added a new, here it is. On your feet, Wishbone family.
This is not heaven. It's the world. And there's troubles in it.
That's the truth. I'll go rhythm and blues. By the way, John, I got to say, I was actually invited on to a movie review podcast called a Film By podcast on Saturday morning to talk about Kingdom of Heaven.
And what did you say about Kingdom of Heaven? Was this coming Saturday?
No, this past Saturday.
What did you say about Kingdom of Heaven?
I said everything.
Other than only watch the director's cut.
Oh, I said that. I said a lot of good things. It was so funny. The host and I basically were just trading lines for an hour and a half. We were just going through all the dialogue back and forth. But I told him at one point, I said, I do a football podcast, and people are now calling it a Kingdom of Heaven podcast that occasionally adds in Auburn sports commentary. And he thought that was hilarious. But, people that don't listen to this show, they don't know that here it comes. You're thinking about it. John has
the audio version. I've created a Kingdom of Heaven mentions tracker for each episode, and we're at 3 for this one so far.
Well, I know it bothers you to hear those comments, but
Do yourself no injury. Other men are always good for that.
That's it. Go ahead and mark up number 4. Marking number 4 on there. All right. I'll let everybody know when that's available, but the podcast is called A Film By, and basically what they do is they do a different movie every episode, and it's a film by, and this was a film by Ridley Scott, so they did Kingdom of Heaven. All right. I'll go Rhythm and Blues, Paul Miles, Rhodesian Mudflap. I'm waiting on Rhodesian Mudflap to come up. Rich Reimer, Rusty Owen says we need to run the ball. And again, there's a clip from The Blind Side that I don't have, but tell us how it goes, because you know, right?
Run the damn ball, Hugh.
There you go. And then, of course, the very simple.
Smoke weed every day.
Oh, that was easy. Thank you. Steve Harlan, Theodore Geary, Wade Ward, WDE Richie, thanks for changing it back, Tiger. Oh, God. That's what's funny? Our patrons list is not only a list of great patrons, and it's not only a list of great soundboard clips. It now has it's like the MCU. It has continuity and crossovers. It's gone out of control. It's beyond anything I ever could have imagined. Is that our patrons list has become like the MCU of college football patrons, and it's incredible. Wes Atkinson, Winston Body, Woody the Jag, ABB, Antoine Morris, Auburn Blue, Blake Heron, the one, the only, live in the studio, Boris the Tiger. Say it, Boris. What? Charles Mooney, Corey Smyer, David D. Amy brought him down earlier while I was going to get the chicken, and I said, what, Boris has been down there with the soundboard all this time? Every button's going to be what? David Simpson, Josh Teal, Kevin Mahan, Luther and Kelly Ottaway, Melissa Blackstone, Papa Todd, Patrick Williams says,
Whether you like it or not, learn to love it. Because
Houston.
It's the best thing going today. Woo!
Yeah, Houston. Philip Martin, Randall Walker, Rob Morgan, Russell Milling, Sarah Hines, Sasquatch, Shane Bailey, Shannon Butson, Stephen Houston, Tim Pittman, Timothy, Tony Perry. Walt wonders how you bring back most of the offense, have better wide receivers, and things get worse. We've been wondering that for a while. Wardam Barbecue. What kind of books do stormtroopers read in their spare time? Troubleshooting guides. That was an Alex Browns, Alex Nguyen, AU Falling Up, Ben Amos, Ben Regas, Chris Como, Chris Braun, Clay Henson, Construction Tiger, and finally CT Tiger, Daniel Witten, Darren Pyle, David Smiley, Elizabeth Donald, I'll buy this for $1, James Taylor, Jim McCrory, John Otsuki, John's Evil Twin, Ron Jinger, Joey Miller, JT Jarhead, Justin Bean, Kenneth Brent Rains reminds us at the barbecue.
You have failed me for the last time.
But we'll see if the chicken finger fails. AKA Auburnett for Life, Mark Squire, MVP, captivating Kathy Bright.
Your love of the halfling's leaf has clearly slowed your mind.
Smoke weed every day.
New York Tiger has one more week to wallow in his own post-World Series crapulence before returning his attention to Auburn football. Paul Bankson, please unlock me from the industrial-sized freezer at
Jones Barbecue and Foot Massage.
That was a new one. Rich Hammett, Royce Alvarez, Russell Souther, Ruth and Darren Sutherland, Spanky. I'm at the bottom of this list because
Blame yourself.
Sports Illustrated's Auburn Elvis, Stephen Thompson, Steve Bailey, the Slinko family, Tiger, Evil, HR Director. Oh, God, he did change it back. And official toe taster of Jones Barbecue and Foot Massage. We just ate, Tiger. They're toe licking good.
Jones Barbecue and Foot Massage.
Thanks a lot. Tim Stalls, Trevor Johnston, and our one-time, I don't think there's another page. Yep. And our one-time Anonymous donors, we thank you all. Thank you all so much. We thank the patrons kind of rote fashion every week, but I just want to say sincerely, thank you guys. You keep the show going, literally, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Now, Guess the Game is on hiatus, but I do have, and this is one I didn't want to do, John. I did not want to do it. Coming up, we have listener questions and around the SEC. But first, I have to talk about one particular nincompoop, ne'er-do-well, Peckerwood, knucklehead that qualifies for today's worst coach in the world. And that would be the man I suggested should replace Bruce when he retires as Auburn basketball coach, Todd Golden of the Florida Gators. I no longer say that Todd Golden of the Florida Gators should replace Bruce. In fact, he may not have a job before this season is over the way things are going, because I'm not even going to wallow in the decadence and filth, but he's been a bad boy. He's been up to bad stuff involving women and students, and I'm really, really, really disappointed.
Yep.
And I will let the fans out there, listeners, look it up for themselves, but I no longer have him on my short list because he is one of the worst coaches in the world.
Thank you. Order. Questions to the Prime Minister.
It's time for listener questions. Dun, dun, dun. On the AU Wishbone podcast.
Do yourself no injury.
All right, what's in the
That was number 5. All right. First email is from Cato.
Okay.
Who says it's called Box Score Breakdown. And he says, hey, fellas, not necessarily a question, but I thought this might be interesting topic of discussion. I saw in the stat on the broadcast a few weeks ago about Auburn being outscored in the second half of games. After it happened again against Vandy, I thought I'd pull the numbers and check it out for myself. And what I found was pretty interesting. I pulled the box scores for every game this season and combined the scoring totals. One where I included A&M New Mexico and one where I left those two teams off and only included Power 4 teams. Here's the breakdown. So against all opponents, the Auburn is outscoring teams 228 to 173, and he has it by quarter. And then against Power 4 opponents, Auburn is being outscored 151 to 110, and he breaks it down by quarter. And the scoring differential of Auburn versus the other teams, we're in positive numbers in the second to third quarter, but we're at negative 31 in the first quarter and negative 35 in the fourth quarter.
That's so strange. It's just weird when there's trends like that.
Well, I mean, we haven't scored an opening series touchdown since the first series against Cal. And, we knew there was a fourth quarter issue, right?
Yes. Yes.
We knew, and some of that is, we're ahead and we, things, the other teams being aggressive, things kind of fall apart. And then he puts in here a good point is we scored more points against A&M in New Mexico than we have against all other 7 teams combined. Obviously, the competition is much better, but still, the fact that in the Power 4 games we haven't reached the point total from just those 2 cupcakes feels odd.
Yeah, it
Would
does.
love to know your thoughts on this, and if you reach the same conclusions I did. Thanks, Cato the researcher.
Yeah, Cato does good work there, and I looked over that and thought it was really interesting, and I drew a lot from it. But I'll say this: it's one of those things that if next season we correct the problems and get the offense kind of clicking again, it will fade away into the same bin where we put our 2012 offensive question marks and problems. You know, it's just one of those things that it can't continue. We're gonna fix it. But yeah, but that being said, I agree. There were some interesting trends there that I was like, I knew we had problems. I didn't realize we had consistent problems across all these games, like the same quarter that we struggle and that kind of thing. You know,
Agree. I do think the defense has gotten better in the second half over the last few games, but we'll see.
And we've quit turning it over as much. Although, you know, it used to be we would just turn over a lot and we'd lose. Now we just turn it over in key moments and lose. So
we're saving them, man, for that real topper.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Next, the listener questions from friend of the podcast, Jared, who says, Wishbone bi-week basketball question. If KD Johnson is still on the team, does the in-flight scrap become a full-on disaster? Or does it never happen at all because the team knows better than to light his fuse? Deep question that only the minds of the Wishbone can probe.
That's a good question. I mean, it's a chemistry thing, and these are two new guys that weren't on the team last year, right? So
I also think, like, if you haven't spent a bunch of time recently around 18 to 22-year-old males, they are messing with each other and roughhousing all the time. This probably happens on team buses and stuff for football and basketball teams.
They just don't turn the bus around.
Right, because on a bus, you just go back there and say, shut up and sit down. And on an airplane, they turn the plane around and land, and we contact the FAA and the police or whatever. So but I also think, like, make KD Johnson air marshal.
Yeah, I like the question, and I like the KD effect to it.
I'm also like, they're probably like, man, we cannot let this keep going because then KD's going to get involved and
the plane may crash.
He's going to open the door to the plane and throw us out.
He's going to open the door. That's exactly it. Yeah.
All right. Next question is from for the podcast, Samuel Salvatore says, hello, guys, and War Eagle in basketball. I think it's safe to say I moved on from football. Yes, I'll watch my Auburn Tigers play football, but with a smile on my face, no matter how many more times Thor is going to throw the ball to the other team or open receivers' heads, thanks to basketball already proving themselves. Even a win over Louisiana-Monroe wouldn't be enough to get me back on the football wagon. They have to do what the basketball team just did, prove it. War Dam basketball, Pearl White Snow may come heavy in forecast this season. We shall see.
Yeah, no, I think he's right. I mean, he's right that winning. I mean, the key thing that Samuel said there, beating Louisiana-Monroe doesn't fix everything. It may not fix anything, but it's a first step, and you got to do it.
But also, like, the basketball team has already proven it, and the football team hasn't proven it. So
you haven't proven anything. No.
All right. Next email is from Logan Chilton. The subject line is "Fun meter is a 9."
Yeah, that's what we said.
He says, gentlemen, while I'm disappointed with the end of the football season, it's good to know there isn't any more football to watch and we can turn our focus to basketball. He says, I am in denial. During last week's show, I agreed with Van fully when he said, like, this was one of those classic early season games where we always lose but hope we learn something from. Then when the story about the plane came out, I was afraid they were going to be undisciplined, like at the end of the season, and that we go to Houston and get blown out. Boy, was I wrong. This team is so exciting to watch. They showed maturity and composure on the road, and Tahad looks like the real deal. Aside from running the game, hitting threes, and being able to drive the lane, the way he hit those 2 free throws at the end of the game was ice cold. There's definitely things to learn from Janai missing his free throws, but moving forward, this team will have this experience and know they can win in tough moments. It's been said before, but I feel like Bruce thinks this team could be poised for a deep run and wants to make sure they are tempered in the fire to make that happen. I couldn't be more excited, and I'm thinking I estimated low in the win total for the season. He says I said 24. No question, as I'm sure win totals have been discussed and possibly adjusted following the game. Keep up the good work and the fried chicken. War Eagle always, Logan.
War fried chicken to you, Logan. I agree. Everything he said is exactly dead on. I'd rather have underestimated and be positively surprised. I thought we were going to lose that game based purely on, not on this team, but based on history. History. But they surprised me. I had a ball. I had so much fun watching the game. And yeah, I mean, the sky is the limit now. Or in Boris's case, the top of the loft, because I threw him up there about 3 times and caught him, and he was dizzy. But yeah, so I mean, this is, I'm just hoping when this is all over, the only thing we can say is
we gotta get better at celebrating.
Yeah.
All right, last email comes from Bill Miner. The subject line is basketball versus football. He says, "Hey guys, I know the basketball team made national news for a very bad reason, is getting more love and attention right now for a lot of good reasons. Do you ever recall an instance where another sport actually eclipsed football with energy and enthusiasm at Auburn? I say the current perfect storm of underperforming football with talented basketball has made this possibility the case. Since being a student, I know 2008 in football was bad, and 2008-09, a better basketball team had made the NIT, but it wasn't even close. Same in 2012 football and 2012-13 basketball, which both were forgettable. It amazes me we have 3 football games left, and so many are hyped on basketball 2 games in." Bill.
That's true. I would say probably the 98-99 basketball team won the SEC and was doing really well when the football that was the end of Terry Bowden and just the very beginning of Tuberville. That was one example. And maybe like the mid 80s, we had Bo, but 85 was kind of a disappointing season. And meanwhile, Sonny's team won the SEC tournament and they played North Carolina in the NCAAs, in the 86 team. Before the 86 season, the team in 86, that same football season, the 85 football season, the 86 basketball season in the winter, spring, went all the way to the Elite Eight and almost to the Final Four. So those are the only other times I can think of. I think we pretty much covered them all.
That's it.
All right. Are we ready for take a look around the SEC?
Hit it.
Roam if you want to, roam around the world. Let's take a trip around the SEC. I still haven't tracked down Mira's original audio.
I was going to say, Mira's voice gets deeper every week.
Well, Boris can do it. Take a trip around SEC. Week 11, we had Texas, Florida was like 42-0 in the first quarter or something, just insane. What did you make of that?
And again, like Florida's good second string quarterback got hurt last week, and I didn't think he was going to play in this game, and then they ruled him out. They went out there with their third string walk-on quarterback again at Texas. That game was over before it ever started. So
yeah, it was just, I had just gone around saying how Florida was the most underrated team in the country, and then they turn around and do that
again. If that guy had played, they'd have been competitive, not win, but they'd have hung around.
Yeah, it would have been better. And Napier had just gotten the vote of confidence. And I love that. I mean, I tweeted something about it, but I wasn't as funny. But this other guy said, look at Billy Napier taking that vote of confidence out for a spin.
Apparently, part of the problem is like the Florida administration above athletics, athletic director and above is an absolute mess. They don't have a regular president right now. They got a bunch of other things going on. So that is part of the reason that they have not fired Napier, is because they got other things going on.
Yeah, I knew they didn't have a president right now. So Ole Miss, I mean, Georgia went into Texas a couple of weeks ago and put the whoop on Texas, and then turn around and go into Ole Miss, and Ole Miss does almost the same thing to them. So the same Ole Miss team that lost to Kentucky. So
I think
it's just crazy to me.
Well, I mean, Ole Miss has talent, but this was their Super Bowl, right? This was the game they bought all that talent for, all those defensive linemen. This is the game they were focused on all year, game planning for all year. They weren't paying attention to Kentucky. They thought they'd roll out of bed and beat them. Yep. And Georgia has kind of gotten progressively worse. Quarterback looked bad last week against Florida. He's thrown a bunch of interceptions. The Georgia fans are all mad at him. And
he looks like he's been to the Peyton Thorne Football Academy.
Let me just say, like, the NIL when Georgia's paying for him to drive a Lamborghini, and I think it's going to be recalled. So,
wow, Datsun.
But again,
by the way, can't you just see the Peyton Thorne Football Academy ads? Young quarterbacks, come and learn how to throw touchdowns. Touchdowns maybe for the other team.
You'll hit somebody with the ball.
Somebody's going to score. Maybe the other team.
Who knows who you hit? God knows.
And that was you. I want on the record. That was you. That was not me. You hit the button. You are the one that did this. Do not count this separately.
Someone knows. God knows.
When you're playing quarterback, there it is. Oh man, he's added a John list now. I bet you didn't expect to have to add a John category on there.
I need to resist. But I mean, so Ole Miss, has, I think, 2 very winnable games. Somebody bad in Mississippi State, and then they're going to be like 10-2 and in playoff contention. So look out.
Is there any chance? Because we always say, right, every year we talk about how the Ole Miss Mississippi State game is almost always an upset. It's almost always an upset, way more than the Iron Bowl.
Yes, the underdog often wins that game. So Mississippi State's offense is good. They could turn it into a shootout and cause problems. I'm looking to see where that game is.
That's just insane. All right. While you're doing that, here's another one that kind of shocked me. I'd forgotten it was on because I was watching the Ole Miss Georgia game. I forgot that if I flipped over to the other channel, I had been saying that South Carolina was sneaky good, right? They'd lost a couple of games, but they almost beat LSU. They almost beat Alabama. They won a couple of games that were tough. South Carolina has been right there all season.
They're legitimately good. They're not, going to go to the playoff or anything, but they're a legitimately good team. They have a great defensive line and a solid quarterback, and they went into Nashville and took care of business against Vanderbilt.
That's the thing. I thought this would be a good game because I knew South Carolina was sneaky good. Vanderbilt wasn't sneaky good. Vanderbilt's just been good. So how do they go on the road to Nashville, albeit in a stadium where often the visitors outnumber the home team, when they have the SEC shorts guy doing the Vanderbilt King thing? How do they get beat 28-7 and score the same number of points on South Carolina that we scored on them?
South Carolina is, again, good. I mean, I think they're legitimate. They're a top half the SEC team. They're going to finish like 9-3 or something. And you're right. They should have won that LSU game, 8-4 maybe, but they're a good team. I think they got a real chance to beat Clemson. Their defensive line is the best in the conference, and they are real difference makers in the defensive line, and that gives them a chance against anybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it tells you what would happen if Auburn played South Carolina because they did the same thing.
We'd get hit in the backfield 100 times. It would be really ugly if we played South Carolina right now.
Gosh. Tennessee handled Mississippi State, but what happened?
I mean, their Tennessee quarterback, Imavalea, got hurt in this game and missed the second half. So they kind of sat on Mississippi State or ran away. And the big game next week, we'll talk about in a minute, is Tennessee at Georgia. So his availability is a big question.
Yeah, that could really change everything about that game because Tennessee needs it, don't they? I mean, Tennessee got 2 losses, I guess.
So does Georgia.
Do they have? Yeah, I know Georgia does. Does Tennessee have 2? I guess they do. So it's kind of an elimination.
Tennessee has 1, I think.
Okay. Well, this is certainly an elimination game for Georgia, possibly for Tennessee.
That's right.
So I tell you what, we all talked about how many 2-loss SEC teams would get in the playoffs. I don't think we realized how many SEC teams would have 2 losses. I mean, Texas has what, 1? And then after that,
Texas has one. Tennessee has one. A&M has two, but only one conference loss. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, LSU pretty much got eliminated by Alabama this week. That was the main. All right. So Alabama, LSU. And that game featured a tiger of unknown origin. Again, Boris volunteered to be there. Changed his Twitter name to a tiger of unknown origin. If you want some entertaining fun, follow Boris as a tiger of unknown origin at Boris AU Tiger on Twitter. That was just Alabama. I thought Alabama played really good defense in that game. It surprised me.
They did, and LSU was terrible on defense last year. They got a little bit better, but Alabama's offensive line pushed them around, and then they got guys in the open field, and particularly Milroe, and he made the LSU linebackers and safeties look bad again and again when he got the ball in the open field. So
once again, it just looked like Alabama had the X factor, and that was Milroe. So
let me tell you, Tennessee fans getting a little tired of Brian Kelly mediocrity.
Yeah. Missouri beat Oklahoma 30-23. This was a game that was like 10-7 or 7-3 late in the game. And they both just started scoring in like the last 5 minutes of the game. And it ended up whoever got the ball last was going to win. And it was Missouri.
Well, and I think LSU Oklahoma had a fumble that was returned for a touchdown. That was the difference in the game.
Yeah. That put them ahead. Yeah. Put Missouri ahead.
And, the offense was not good for Oklahoma. Just going to say that.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, I think Missouri, I kept switching around. I saw part of it. I think Missouri was down a touchdown and tied it on a pass to one of their good receivers. And then as soon as Oklahoma got the ball back, they fumbled and Missouri scored again. So Missouri got like 14 points in like 30 seconds or something.
That's it. And won the game.
It sucked for Oklahoma, right, to lose similar to the way they beat us.
Yeah, my heart bleeds for them. But also, Missouri is freaking fraudulent. They're another SEC team with 2 losses, but they shouldn't come within 100 miles of the playoff. So
no, they've been very fortunate. All right, so week 12 is coming up, and we'll wrap things up and get out of here. Texas at Arkansas, that's always a fun matchup. We haven't seen it. We've seen it on and off a little bit as a non-conference game, but now it's the 11 a.m. Central Time time slot of death. Any thoughts about Texas, Arkansas? Historical Southwestern Conference.
Yeah, it's old school. Arkansas fans hate Texas. It's at Arkansas. They're going to be fired. They beat Texas there a couple of years ago in a non-conference game. I don't think they can do it again, but they're going to be fired up for this game. So
yeah. Murray State at Kentucky. Kentucky has a shot in that, I think, maybe if they play their cards right. Good for them. Murray State recruited my daughter. She hadn't decided where she's going yet. She's looking at Auburn, by the way. But Murray State told her if she got a horse, they would stable her horse for her for free. And she's like, dang, that's pretty good. So Murray State is on her list if she should happen to get a horse between now and graduation.
It's an option.
Let's see. Mercer at Alabama, because, of course, they famously cry for Mercer. It's not looking like a great week. LSU at Florida is a team kind of on the way down versus a team that was kind of on the way up, but now the quarterback situation. So what do you make of LSU Florida?
Again, a game in the preseason that looked really exciting, but now I have no interest in watching. None.
Yeah, it really has become a junk pile, junk heap. Missouri at South Carolina. I think Missouri is in for a wake-up call.
Mm-hmm. This is maybe where they get embarrassed and knocked around in a way they lose all this playoff discussion. So I think that'd be
it's going to look like that Texas A&M Missouri game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think South Carolina wins by double digits at least. And that is your 2:15 Central SEC Network. The 3:30 Eastern ABC game is LSU at Florida, and that is based on name brand recognition alone.
Oh yeah.
All right, your late games, Tennessee at Georgia, which is 6:30 Central ABC. I mean, depending on what happens with the quarterback, that could be good.
I mean, if he's healthy, that's the game of the week in the conference right there. That's it.
And Tennessee has good defense this year, so they could intercept what's his doodle again and make him look bad.
Oh yeah.
And then New Mexico State at Texas A&M late. Obviously, that's going to be a blowout. So this is not the best upcoming week.
I was going to
games.
say, apple picking, always an option this time of year. If you need to get outside, rake the leaves or whatever, but spend some time with the family outdoors kind of thing.
Waterproof my basement before the winter comes because it's got something weird going on with the leaking. We had a leak down here in the palatial studios twice in the last 2 months. I'm not happy about it. All right. What are your non-conference games of the week to watch this week, John? And we will wrap it up.
These are both in the same time block as the Auburn game, ULM game. But in case that game gets to be ugly and you want to flip around, Utah at Colorado is noon on Fox. At Colorado, we've all kind of blinked, and now they are actually in a great driver's seat position to make the playoff for the Big 12.
They are?
Yes. And then Clemson at Pitt, with Miami losing this weekend, there's a lot of teams that are kind of scrambling to hang around in the ACC, and Clemson is one of them. Pitt is kind of losing that control, but that's at noon on ESPN. That'll be something. So
Miami opened that door when they lost. Who beat Miami?
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. Yeah, I had that game circled as just an interesting game to watch. I don't know that I thought Tech was going to win, but I thought they'd make it interesting. And I turned it on, but well before it was over. And I was seeing Miami trying to come back. And Tech kept their hand on the Miami forehead, right? Kept them at bay the whole fourth quarter. It was impressive. So good for Tech. It reminded me, I'm like, it's just so funny because Tech hadn't had a great middle of the season, but they started the season beating up on Florida State, and their most recent game was beating up on Miami. Georgia Tech having a year where they solidly beat both Florida State and Miami. That's a pretty good year for Georgia Tech.
It is. And I think clearly they're moving back in the direction where they're going to be scrappy against Georgia, which we'll all appreciate too.
Oh, that would be so great. Man, imagine a year where Georgia Tech beats Miami, Florida State, and Georgia all in the same year. And yet probably has 3 or 4 losses because I don't know what they've done in between. Not great. They haven't been great. But
that's right.
All right. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to those games. I mean, it's not the greatest football weekend, but you can't really predict. But we'll see. And I think Missouri, South Carolina will be fun. All right. Any final thoughts as we get out of here? Basketball is upon us, John, and we all rejoice and celebrate.
Basketball is upon us. Football's quickly moving by, but we're excited and looking forward. As we said for a long time, basketball is our happy place. And this year, it's a happier place.
It is. All right. Our time is up. We thank you for yours. War Eagle, John.
War Eagle, man.
And the score is 5-1 in the Kingdom of Heaven tracker.